Hi, my name is Tue Madsen, and you're listening to Brutally Delicious on this amazing thing you're looking at right now.
How are you, Bruce Moore? My partner, Chris.
How you doing, man?
How are you? I'm good.
Thanks.
I ran a little late because I was going swimming, winter bathing, or whatever you call it in English. Yes.
In the ocean?
Yes.
Oh my God!
It's 1 below zero, so.
Oh. Is that
the water temperature is 1 below zero, or it's 1 below zero in the air?
That was ice on the water.
Oh.
Is that something you do regularly?
Yeah, my wife does it every day.
Really?
I try to join her as much as I can, but it's good. So,
is there anything more metal than going for an ice bath in the ocean in the middle of winter?
But she's more metal than me then, because she can stay in for 5 minutes, and I'm 1 minute or something, maybe two.
Wow.
I just wonder, like, what happens when you get up to that area where even in warm water it gives guys a shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's like you just have to switch off the brain and then do it. And just at that moment when you break the surface of the water, your body is screaming at you like, this is a mistake. Turn back, but it's too late. And then you just plunge in, and then you need to try and, try to keep calm and not, but be like, and then you can stay in for a little while until you get numb fingers and your toes start falling off. And
right.
I guess it's a good mental exercise, right? To teach you to stay calm in heavy situations.
Yeah, and it feels amazing afterwards. So
yeah, well, like when you get in the car and there's warmth.
Well, actually, already as soon as you get out of the water, you're freezing, of course, but like 10 seconds later, you're like, I don't even need to get dressed because this is great. Wow. I'm warm. So right away, within 5-10 seconds or something, you feel great. And then it feels even better to put on your clothes again.
Interesting.
This isn't music related, but how did you guys start doing this?
Actually, we moved here almost 2 years ago. We moved in on March 1st, and 3 kilometers that way, there's a beach which is practically our own. There's like a huge castle, and they own all the land between the castle and the beach. So only if you're one of the residents of this small area, you can get a permit to drive through the forest and then go to the beach. So we started doing that, and I think in the end of March or something, when we moved here 2 years ago.
Oh.
And then it just felt great. I mean, down there it's rough. It's not like a posh beach or anything. It's just like rough stones and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it feels a bit more crazy. but I kind of like that. The where we did it today was in this like harbor type thing that has a bathing area with a bridge and ladders and stuff. So it's all posh and nice and looks good and stuff. But down here it's rough. There there's nothing. You just take off your clothes and then you storm into the water, and you know that if you get a little bit too far out, then it's dangerous, because if there are waves and shit, you can get pulled on.
So are you doing this in the nude, or are you wearing swimming clothes? Like,
why did you go there?
We're alone, so it's Viking style.
Nice.
That's awesome. Give me 1 sec. I just have to close my door. I can hear my furnace. 1 sec.
Yeah, no problem. So anyway, thank you for taking the time to do it. I know we tried a couple months ago and it didn't work out, but I'm glad we got to make it.
Because I forgot to answer.
That's fine. It's fine. Things are so fucked up anyway everywhere. So
yeah.
Anyway, Chris, you want to lead the way?
Sure. What top secret projects are you working on right now?
I don't know. I don't think it's super top secret. I'm mixing Billy Bio from Biohazard, his project. I'm mixing a new album for them. I got about half the songs, waiting for the other half. And then I was supposed to do a local band in January, but one of the guys got corona.
Oh.
And they had to cancel like 2 days before. And that left me just sitting here, like staring at the walls and be like, okay. And then I have this, he started as an intern. Now he's more like an assistant. He's been coming here, once or twice a week or something for 3, 4, 5 years or something. And he always asks me stuff that make me reconsider the way I do things, which is like the great thing about having him here, because he's very talented mixing guy, but he does it mostly at home and or only at home, and and then he comes here and then he's like, I don't know, why would I ever want to use an LA2 or instead of an 1176 or whatever, something that I know and I done this and that and stuff, and then you just get set in your ways and because shit's got to be finished and you do what usually works and stuff. And then he comes and asks a question like that. I'm like, well, that's because this and that, and how come I stopped doing that? Because I really like when you do this and that, and then I have to go out and buy stuff. But about half a year ago, a couple of months ago, he asked me about IRs, if I ever considered doing IRs. I was like, no, why would I? I have a great sounding drum room, and I have, I don't know, 10 different cabinets, and I think you can see 20 amps or something over there.
Yeah. Well, you can sell.
So I'm like, why would I? Because but then when this band canceled, I was like, yeah, maybe I should do some. And so now my plan is to do a lot of things. Like I'm doing my own sample library.
Nice.
Mainly so that I can use it. And but then I'm thinking maybe I should do it a little TV shop or a shop site on my website and see if anybody else wants to buy them. And like right now I'm doing a lot of Kemper profiles because we have a Kemper and I never did it. And I just thought, yeah, there might be some people who would be interested in that, and it would be fun to do because I haven't done it in 5 years or something since I last did anything with the Kemper. And then I did a few, and I was quite surprised. I think they must have updated the software because it left me feeling a lot more satisfied than it did 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe I just did something wrong 5 years ago. I don't know. Basically, I am more of an amp guy. I think it's more fun and, to plug into something and knowing that no matter how many times you plugged into this amp, it's always going to be different because the mic is never going to be in the same place and that stuff is never going to work the same 2 years in a row. It's going to be close or similar or very similar, but it's never the same. But with a digital thing, it's always going to be the same. So, but I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of some one-shot samples, and then I've been using the Slate trigger thing. So I've been trying to make my samples so I could, basically for myself to see, because I never really like other people's samples, and I never really like other people's preset in amp plugins or whatever. It's always like I also did some. I don't know if they call it IRs, but these two notes torpedo things, and I did a bunch of cabinets for them, and I was never crazy about any of the ones that I got from the company. But as soon as I heard my own, I was like, yes, this is what it should sound like.
Yeah.
And I can understand it. I can't explain it because it's really, I mean, we all use a Shure 57 on a guitar or on a snare or whatever. And so what the hell is it that we do differently? But for some reason, throughout my whole career, I pretty much only used samples that I did myself. Mm-hmm. And whenever I try, because some people send me stuff and want me to try it out, or there's a big hype, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing ever and stuff, and okay, let me try it out. And then I'm like, and then I always end out pulling my own shitty sample that I did in 2003 for a snare, and it sounds horrible. It sounds like hitting an old school typewriter. It's awful. And I send it to some friends of mine, and they're like, are you crazy? And I'm like, yeah, no, well, you decide. But this does it for me because I know I can get exactly this or this or this in a certain way that because I always use samples to help what's already there, not to replace it so much. And then it's like this little thing that I know that will help me get just what I need to make what someone sent me better. And for that reason, I think it's really interesting doing these samples. And, I'm just goofing about it. I'm not scientific about it, but everything I do is anti-scientific, I think. Or I'm not one of those guys with measuring bands and stuff to see if the mic is at the exact same distance to the snare and stuff, because everything I ever did was, kind of random, but not random.
Right.
There was a method to the madness.
Yeah, or madness to the method. It's like, let's try this stuff. This mic sounds great when it's here, but we only have one, so we can't really do a stereo setup. But I want something stereo, so I just put something else over here. Oh, can I make it work? Yeah, it works, and it doesn't sound like crazy everything to the right, or maybe it does, but it's cool for this record, or all these things that. If you go by the book, it's wrong. But if you dig the record, I guess it's right.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
That's pretty much how I go about everything. Like I would, like I did the new Ectomorph album that just came out last week or something. We did it a year and a half ago. They changed labels and stuff. And Solely, the main guitar songwriter and everything, he was always a Mesa guy. He played Rectifier when I met him, and later on it was the Mark V, but always Mesa. And he, all the Kemper profiles I did, he preferred the Mesas without knowing what it was I sent him. It's like, it's his DNA.
That's funny.
But anyway, he did his own kind of shitty, fast profiles for the Kemper, and it behaves in a different way than the amp. And when he got here, he was like, I want to record with the Kemper. And I was like, no, you don't. I fucking hate that shit. And then he was like, yeah, but okay, we can try. And we tried out all these amps and pedals and cabinets and everything. And at the end of the day, we had to do the album with the Kemper because it just sounds different. It sounds very close to a real amp, but it's not. So it is different. And that small difference he's just fallen in love with that sound, like how the response of the low end doesn't come later, like on a Marshall wall where it goes like, and then you go, that delay between the low end and the crunch, which is normal for pretty much anything, but that doesn't happen in the Kemper. On his sound, it shows up right away when he's playing. Everything is there at the same time, and I can understand. And we did the whole album with the Kemper because we couldn't get any amp to behave in that way, and then it doesn't matter so much what I feel about this and that. And no, my principle is to always we always use this mic because that's the fucking best. There is no fucking best. There is differences in everything, and whatever makes the guitar player happy will make him play better, and that will make a better record.
Oh,
and then
100%.
it doesn't really matter to me if it's this or that amp. I'm happy with any amp in the world pretty much, as long as Mr. Guitar Player and me and this little bubble that we're in when we're doing a record, as long as we're all happy, I know we're going to a good place.
Right.
And that's probably going to be a different place than anybody else in the world, because it's only us right now. So
what's the like, I don't know how to phrase this. What's the worst guitar equipment that ever showed up for you to record, but turned out being the perfect thing?
There's a local band, you don't know them. They're called Singvogel. It's a Danish band. Small, but I known them forever. And we've been working together before I did anything that anybody would know anything about. Like, I've been working with them for 22 years or something. And on and off, they are basically punk rockers. But nothing is like you would expect anything to be. Everything is different. And that's why I love still working with them. Like, the guitar player showed up one day and said, I was thinking, maybe do you have a vase? Because maybe if we put a microphone into the vase and put it in front of the amp, what would that sound like? And I was like, probably very horrible, but what the fuck, let's do it. And we ended up actually recording a part like that. That's and and it's stupid. And his guitar setup is kind of like that. He has this, I think it's a Yamaha combo, a really old one, and then his dad built like looks like a monitor box. It's about this big and has one speaker and a tweeter that's just probably from something hi-fi or whatever. and I think there's an amp inside it. I think it's meant for him to actually sing through it when he was young or something, but he uses it for his guitar, and it sounds like a million bees coming at you at crazy volume. And then in combination with the Yamaha, and then he has some preamp, and everything is. I posted it on my Facebook. I think the last time they were here, probably a year ago or something, and some people start talking about, that Yamaha, they made some clever stuff. And I'm like, don't go there. This is a bad, but I think it's fun because most people expect me to, be all about 5150s and metal production and stuff. And I just love when something is off the grid and crazy. And working with this band is always crazy. They will show up with a list so they can check everything. They don't have a bass player. So sometimes it'll be a bass saxophone or I don't know the English word, clarinet.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that the English
bass clarinet?
word? Yeah. And then she will be playing the bass in the production, or sometimes it's a mini moog, and everything is crazy, and everybody are recording. It's live and it's overdubs and everything at the same time, and we'll do vocals maybe before the track is actually done, and then we'll do some guitar bit. Everything is thrown together, and it's just a big pile of craziness, but then you have to make music out of it.
Right.
And I love listening to those records afterwards, because when we start out, I'm like, where is this going? But when we end up, I always think it sounds like music, and I really enjoy listening to it. And lyrics are really great. And so, I think everybody should have those experiences, because it's nice. For me, about 10 years ago or something, I really felt like when I'd done like 20, 30 metal albums, which were all like sort of focused around the same thing, being rough all the time. Then having these guys come in, it was like taking a vacuum cleaner to the brain and just erase everything. And when they left and I had to go back to do something metal again afterwards, it was like, oh yeah, there's everything in the world. And that actually also spills into doing more straight up just metal albums, knowing that there's a different world. We can do something crazy here. Oh, they didn't like that. Okay, so we don't. But
how involved do you get with, say, drum tuning or guitar setups or anything like that while you're recording bands?
I like to have someone tune the drums. If the drummer's not good at it, depends on how crazy it gets. Over the years, I learned, I guess, through listening to drums through microphones, and knowing that what you hear through a microphone is not the same thing that you hear in the room, because in the room you're like at least one this far away from the drum, so you hear the room more than you actually hear the drum. And knowing that when you get in here, you hear this that you don't like. So you have to go in there and find it. And if you hit the drum in there, it sounds fine, but the microphone doesn't lie. So you have to find that tuning spot to get rid of it and be able to hear it. And that I do a lot. I don't, I'm not one of those guys who wants to tune the drums to the tune of the guitars or stuff like that. I understand where they're coming from. For me, it doesn't matter. If you call me back in 3 years, maybe I have a new idea and I'll say the opposite. Because everything really is like that for me. It's whatever makes us in our little bubble here happy now is what we'll do. And then if you ask me a year later, what amp did you use in that record? I probably have no idea. Sometimes I know because it was an issue or something that was really focused on. But normally, we'll try a bunch of stuff out with the guitar player. And when he's happy with the amp and the cab and the pedals and whatever, I close the door to the noisy room, and that's not important anymore. Then it's about him and me and him playing guitar and getting the best takes. And then I completely forget everything. Also because I know that it doesn't really matter when you change the band. It doesn't. I did this. I mixed and reamped Heaven Shall Burn records some years ago. I forget which one, but I did a reamp session of the whole record, and we finished the record, and they went home. Everybody was happy, and I was mixing stuff and didn't have to do anything amp related for the next 2 months. So the door just stayed closed. And then I got this mix job for a German Actually, I forget which band it was. Maybe it was Naira. But it was, a band that was style-wise sounding pretty similar to Heaven Shall Burn. And I was like, great. We just spent a lot of time setting up guitar sound for Heaven Shall Burn. And here comes this band that sounds more or less the same. And so, of course, I have the guitar sound set up already. And then I started reamping, and it sounded absolutely horrible. And I had to change everything about it because it's not the same band.
Yeah.
I mean, you might think it's the same band, and you might think that Airborne sounds like AC/DC or whatever.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they don't, because they're not AC/DC. And as much as I wanted to, I'm not Entombed or Metallica or, all these things that we think sound great. So it really is about capturing the moment.
Right.
And that was pretty far away from the question you asked, I think. But
it's okay.
Go
ahead, Bruce.
No, I was going to say, I was going through the list of your discography, and I actually forgot about The Cleansing. That's one of my favorite records back with Suicide Silence. What was that like? Was it tough working with them, and how did you build that such a massive record?
I didn't record the album.
Okay.
They recorded it live in the studio with fuck it, I can't remember now.
It doesn't.
But it was not a nobody. It was really somebody. So it's kind of embarrassing that I can't remember right now. Anyway, they recorded it live, and that was really a live record. Actually, I had to do are you familiar with Nail the Mix from Unstoppable Recording Machine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I did a session about a year ago, where we did revisited that album. And when I opened up that session from my backup, I was like, holy shit, I did nothing.
Really?
That's what it seemed like to me. But of course you do something.
Right.
But it was really intense recording. And when you went into the audio files folder, and then look, you have like a snare track that was recorded as 5 minutes past 2. Then you have another snare recorded at 10 minutes past 2, and another one 15 minutes past. And there were like 4 takes, or 5 maybe, or something. And everything, all the tracks, guitars, bass, drums, everything was chopped up together. So it's like, here's a good verse and the first chorus, and then there's a good verse from a different take, and then there's maybe this from the first take. It was like huge chunks of takes that were just pieced together. So maybe there was like, I don't know, between 3 and 15 edits on a song. Wow. That was just pieced together by maybe 4 or 5 takes on a song. And you could go into the audio files folder and see that this was recorded within 20 minutes. Or something.
Unbelievable.
It's like 5 takes, like right after each other.
Wow.
And that was amazing. And I remember mixing, there are a few records that stands out because I most go deaf mixing them, because you just have to crank it up, because it's with that record, it's so violent. It's so in your face, and it has to be. I mean, I think that record was awesome.
I went back and revisited last night after I was looking at your thing, and I listened to the whole thing, just sitting around on one of my headphones, and I was like, holy shit, this thing, you hit it right. I mean, you can't say it any better. It's violent.
Yeah.
And it's a wall.
Yeah.
There was nobody like Mitch, though. I mean, he was quite different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I prefer that one because I did.
Yeah.
So I have a technical question. All of your records, none of them sound the same, but they definitely have a style, especially with the bass and the drums. Like you find a way to kind of make sure the guitars keep their bottom end in the kind of like, I don't even know, like 150 to 500 range. How do you kind of approach doing that while still keeping the body of the drums and the bass alive?
Actually, I come from a place back around the I think when I started out doing sound, I was like, I was pissed off with old guys who would be like, yeah, 57 is always the best for guitar, or if you can't do good sound with the 57, you can't do good sound, or, stuff like that. And I was like, fuck 57. I'm never going to, and I didn't use a Shure 57 for probably 10 years or something for anything, just because fuck those guys, which is ridiculous. But that's, so I went in any other direction. I would take anything else just to avoid doing what other people were doing. And the same goes for I heard a lot of, the book would say that guitar is like in the mid-range. You don't really need all that low end and all that high end because it's not really where the notes are. And I was like, no, but it's where it sounds good. So I probably also did a lot of stupid recordings with way too much of something that's not even guitar-related noise in the guitar sound. Mm-hmm. I know. And now I'm, being young, you're like, yeah, I know what's right. And everybody else don't.
Right.
I know the truth. And so I went by that. And that, for instance, that the first Nemec album or the early Nemec albums, I was really done from that perspective, where I was like, why can't you have 10 kilohertz in the guitar sound? It makes it sound better. And why can't you have 50 hertz in the guitar sound? Because I think it sounds great, and it's a wall of sound, and it sounds fuller than if I don't. So I was like, yeah, well, if it sounds good, and it sounds good when I bring it to the car, and it sounds so, fuck it, let's do it. And I think that goes some way to explain what you're asking.
Yeah.
Because I never went by, I took some audio education stuff, not a lot. And it was actually too late. The damage was already done. but And the book would always say, do low cuts on everything, because it was also about live sound and stuff. And you don't need anything below 100 hertz on vocals, because that's not where the vocals are. Yeah, well, try to get Johnny Cash to sound like he's filling up the whole room if you cut everything out of it. And that was kind of my approach to it. And I was, when I was 12 or 15 or something, I was both a drummer, and I started playing drums and guitars at the same time. So I have equal amounts of love for both instruments. And I want music in general. I think pretty much no matter what kind of music, it needs to be physical for me, and that goes for drums. I want to, even if you're at low volumes, I want you to be able to get that feel of standing in front of a huge PA in a big concert. You that feel of a bass drum going like in your stomach.
Right.
So you go, oh, and then you get one on the nose so you can keep your balance, from the snare. And that effect is something I want to always be there. And it can be tricky because if you put that much power into the bass drum and having to play crazy loud on CDs like we've been doing for almost at least 15 years, now it's getting better again with streaming, and we don't have to play so loud anymore. But, you know, and I'm guilty. But it's hard. It's difficult to make a record come out loud that way when you put a lot of power in the low end of the bass drum, especially when the drummer goes into a part. Fuck it, your whole mastering is going to go horrible. But yeah, that was I wanted Led Zeppelin drums, not like they actually sound, but like they sound to me in here. I want big drums. I want ambience mics on my drums because I think it's really good glue. It's also a pain in the ass when the cymbals get too noisy, and there's a lot of problems. There's something I want, and I don't want all the problems, but you have to accept both and then balance it out. And
right.
So I like to get all the tracks playing fairly quickly, because I know if I spend 2 days mixing a drum kit, it's going to fall apart when I put the bass on. And then when I get the bass and drums working, it's going to fall apart when I put the guitars on. And it's also going to fall apart when you put vocals on. Everything has to be there to make it, let it find its own space. And I like everything to be heard. So if you send me 300 tracks because you think, I want to leave this guy options, chances are I'm going to use all 300 tracks. So because if you took the time to record it, I feel bad throwing it out. Kind of like if someone gave me a free CD, it's still on the wall back there because I can't throw it out. It's music. Someone paid a lot of attention to it. You know?
Yeah, the heart and soul in it, right?
Yes. And the same goes for tracks. Send me 200 tracks, and there's heart and soul in all of them in some way.
I struggle with that one. That one I understand. I got a mix a little while ago. It was 125 tracks, and I was just like, am I using all of this?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
And, you know, sometimes you get like 8 microphones on a single guitar take. And it's like, they all sound the same or not the same at all, and you know, sometimes if something sounds horrible, I'll just look for whatever is working best. And because I've been through this whole, let's use this amp, but what happens if we split the signal and also record this amp and maybe a third one too, and maybe 2 different cabs on this one because both of them sound good and we have 2 mics and everything, and then you end up recording 10 tracks for 1 guitar.
Yeah.
And you know, but also, and sometimes it's great, you know, they phase out a little when you mix the mics and you find the sweet spot for the mix between different mics. But it's also, you usually do it because, I really like the 5150, but it sounds better if I put a little bit of a rectifier in, because then the low end is, it does, but now it doesn't sound like a 5150 anymore.
Right.
It doesn't sound like rectifier either. It sounds like a whole new thing, which can be good. But if you were in love with the 5150, maybe you should consider just sticking with that one.
That's a whole rabbit hole you could go down, though, right? I mean, where does that end?
Yes, and I've been there many times, you know, recording lots of things. But what I also started finding out is that the more mics, which is also true for drum recordings, of course, the more mics you put up, the more phase issues you're going to get. And it can be good. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But at least you need to make sure that when you mix all this, are you just going to get this huge comb EQ going without you even noticing? And then when you start mixing, it's like, wow, all this shit was just like one type of distortion doesn't work necessarily with a different type of distortion.
Right.
Like if you take a super distortion pedal and plug it into a high gain amp, it's probably going to be shit. If you take a mild overdrive like a Tube Screamer, it'll work. But if you take like a Metal Zone and plug it into the high gain input of a whatever high gain amp, it's just going to destroy everything. And it's kind of the same if you split the signal and have 3 different amazing sounding amps, and then you put them together in the mix, and it's like, no, they're not so amazing anymore. But maybe you forgot to realize that, and you just recorded it.
Right.
So,
yeah. Do you double mic your toms or just single mic?
Yes, no. Most of the time, I just mic the top of the tom. Sometimes I record the bottom as well, but I don't know. It's a lot of extra hassle, and I find that I can just as easily work with only the top mic. So sometimes I do it. It's more. I mean, if you're here tomorrow and you ask me that question, I'll probably put up a tom mic on the bottom as well, because you asked me, and then that reminds me, oh yeah, I did that, and that sounded cool. So okay, maybe I should do it again. So maybe it'll happen tomorrow because you asked me, because it really does work like that with me. It kind of depends on the situation and if something is calling for it. But I don't do it. I don't do it as a general rule. I like to record from the top as a general rule, but putting one on the bottom is like sometimes yes, but not always.
Yeah, I've tried it. It's never done much for me, but I've worked with a lot of engineers where it did work really well for them. So I was like, huh. But it's like you say, engineering is such a personal journey, it's like everyone has their own way of approaching something to get a particular result.
And that's very important thing, I think, because there's a lot of discussions about, which is the best mic, which is the best whatever preamp, and should you mix on a desk, or is in the box better, and all this stuff. And I recorded some stuff sometimes that were going to some of my favorite mixers in the world, and like Terry Date, for instance, and he had a set of things that he would like if he was. He didn't end up mixing the record, I did, but anyway, he was supposed to. Time didn't allow it or something, and so we did a couple of things in the recording that I didn't think was necessary, but I'm not gonna argue with someone that I look up to, or maybe I don't even look up to them. If this guy, what's his name, someone has a preference, if he says he can't mix bass without a Pultec EQ, and he can't do it without a Neve this or this particular mic or something, that's his way of working, and I can't argue with that. But for me, it might not make the same difference. It's like asking a carpenter to not use the hammer anymore, or a screwdriver. Use glue instead. It's much better. You don't tell him that. It's like he knows what he needs to make what he's doing, and you shouldn't fuck with that. And that'll be different for all of us in some ways, hopefully. And for me, mixing on a desk is not good anymore. I did it like in the 90s, and sometimes I'm in the early, I don't know, 90s and early zeros, or what's it called?
2000s,
I mixed a lot of stuff on desks, and I remember what it's like. And there's certain things that I like about it, but I so prefer to stay in the box now.
Yeah. Are you using a control surface for faders, or are you just strictly mouse?
When I first started out by myself, I bought a G3 with the circular mouse, and that was actually my first computer, like my own first. I never did have a computer before that, so I learned to use that one, and I've been comfortable with the keyboard and the shortcuts I got in the keyboard and the mouse. This is my workflow.
Yeah,
great.
You know what? I'm the same. I started out working on like SSL large format and a classic API desk.
Yeah.
And then I went and I started working in the box.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is great. And then someone said, oh, we have to mix on a desk. And I was like, oh, sure, I remember how to do that. And I started doing it. And I was like, this is terrible. It's so slow.
Yeah. Me too.
Why do I have to patch this and patch that? And like,
yeah.
Hey, before we go, because I know we kept you a lot longer than I thought, do you have any crazy stories, or what's the craziest story, good or bad, of one of your clients that have come in that you care to share?
Crazy story.
I think unusual, or whatever the word might be, something that stands out that you tell at cocktail parties.
Yeah. At dinner parties. I don't know about that. I remember just before the Haunted split up, that when we did I think it was the Versus, no, not the Versus, the Unseen album. Because everybody in the Haunted were really different. You had the twins, where one of them says nothing and the other one says less. And then you have Per, the drummer, and he's also a quiet, moody, never really satisfied with anything, fuck that kind of guy. And you got Peter, the singer, who was, all over the place, and Jensen, who's just probably the most normal guy in the band. And at that point, I had the feeling that they all found their place. Because whenever Peter would go off on a rant and hearing, could we find some weird synth? Because I hear this sound kind of like Mickey Mouse, but in a Tom and Jerry kind of way. And then he's got to be like, when the rabbit starts thinking about, that sound. And then we would put stuff. And when that started to happen, I remember he got one of those ideas, and he was like, oh, but then he kept himself and said, guys, are you finished with what you're doing? And then they were like, yeah, well, can we turn up this and that, and just play this part again and move that drum hit or something? And then, okay, so it's my turn now. And then he's moved up, and I remember the other three guys, the twins and Per, would just look at each other at the couch in the back and be like, start to pick up their stuff and walk back to the hotel. Because they knew now stuff was happening that they would want to vote out of the record later on.
Right.
But it stayed on the record. It's still there. And I thought that was actually a really beautiful moment that showed that they were so different in their approach to a lot of things, but they also, everybody at that point, that was my perception, found peace with everybody's differences. And they knew that they had to leave stuff and just let this guy or that guy or whoever go off on whatever idea they have, because what they all bring to the table is what made the Haunted such a great band at that time. And I know it's not the most successful records, but I think those people who liked what started on the Dead Eye and appreciated the direction they went in for those next couple of records know that some really special stuff. And I know everybody in the band really knew that they had to give each other space to do all these things.
Right. Nice.
And that made the whole split up about a year later or whatever, when it was, so much more sad, because I really thought that they were, a really difficult to work machine within themselves, but they found a way. But then everything blew up and everybody got pissed off.
Yeah.
It's rock and roll.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to. I want to take the time to thank you for. I know we kept you a long time. I didn't plan on going this long, but
I could stay here for 3 hours. I'm just a geek, but I'll
You can do it again.
Get to vocals, but I'll let you go.
No, it's okay. I mean, I have some time if you want.
Yeah, we've got. I mean, it's up to you. If you want to ask it, I'm going to hit the restroom real quick while you're doing that question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So how do you approach recording vocals? Do you have like a particular mic chain that you like? Compressors? Like recording a screamer is something that's not exactly easy.
First up, I very rarely use that mic. Now I'm pointing at SM7 in your face.
Yeah.
I know it's everybody is like, yeah, it's the only one. And I'm like, yeah, I know what it's good for, exactly what you're doing. That's what it's built for.
Yeah.
And it's good for a lot of things. I just think it sounds better to sing into a tube mic. And it doesn't matter if you're a screamer or clean singer or something. So I'll usually go for a tube mic. And I, years ago, like in the early 2003, no, this was 2002, I bought, like, it was like a Chinese copy of one of the old Neumanns. I forget which one.
Yeah.
3749 or something, one of those lots of money microphones. And this was a cheap copy, but that a local tube guy said, like, well, everything in this one is actually exactly like it should be. And I bought this one. And this was after I did the Nemec demo before the first album. Then I bought the microphone. Then they came back and did the album. And Michael, the singer, just sounded like he was 10 years older and so much better. And the next band I did was another band I'd been working with on demos and stuff, local band for 5 years. And when they came in, the singer just sounded like, oh, you've grown up, man. And then another one. And then I was like, holy shit, I can never record a singer without this microphone ever again, because it's got to be the holy grail. And I stuck with it. I still have it. It's broken, so I had to buy a new one, find a new Chinese rip-off, microphone of the same brand. I went to the same store, and they had from the same shipment 10 years earlier. They still had another one in a suitcase. So I have some others now, and I change every once in a while. I'm like, you're not the boss of me, so I'll do something else just for the sake of doing something else. But tube mics is usually pretty important for me for vocals, and that doesn't matter if it's a screamer. And if you listen solo, you hear a lot of low frequency noise going on because the mic can't handle it.
Yeah.
But when you listen to it in the context of a metal song, it's probably what's needed for it to work, or part of the reason why it works so well. I always run it into, I have these Neve 1073 preamps and a compressor that just touches it so it doesn't go away. And then if you have to do a softly spoken or softly sung tone, I'll just click up a few notches and sometimes you forget, and then you find out that the Neves is the most awesome distortion you can get for vocals.
Oh, it is.
I
was just about to ask you if you drive the pre.
I don't as a starting point, I don't. But then you're 3 songs in, and then he's got that type of negative kind of vocal he wants to do, and then you're like, click, not enough, click, click, not, click, okay. So now we're like 25 dBs up or something. And then he does his part, and then we go have a break, have something to eat, and do the next song, which is kind of a fast one. And then he's like, holy shit, you're crazy, dude. The pause break really did everything good for you. And then you look over to the Neve pre, and it's just like... But it sounds amazing because the way it breaks up just sounds so good. And then you can't turn it down again. Everything will suck again if you do that. But that's pretty much my way in, like a tube mic and that going into the computer. Then I'll usually have an 1176, maybe an LA2. I also have an LA2 that I like to go through sometimes recording vocals. I think it's sometimes it's the best thing, and then I really feel like the vocal is already mixed. But sometimes it works the complete other way. And I'm like, I hear all these weird things in your voice and I hate it. Let me just try something, and then I unplug and I'm like, yeah, now it sounds good. So it's like, that'll be my chain before it hits the computer, and then it's just EQ and another compressor probably.
What are you using for plugins then? Like, are you a Waves guy? Are you a Plug Alliance guy? Are you UAD, or are you all of the above?
No, I don't have any UAD actually. I just never got it, and I'm pretty happy where I am. I have a lot of things. And some of it is really boring, like the Pump Factory 76.
Oh, that's a great compressor.
Yeah, it is. And it gets the compression that if I need something more gritty, I'll usually plug in the Waves CLA LA2.
Yeah.
Which is amazing also for getting it dirty a bit. I like sometimes if it's recorded too clean and it needs to be dirtier, I use the lo-fi from Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Lo-fi, and just give it like 0.1 or 0.3 or very little, and maybe the saturation takes off some of the ugly high end if you just put it on 0.1 or something, right. Like next to nothing.
Yeah.
Or the air distortion from Pro Tools, that's awesome on vocals, but more like in the black metal kind of way. But it sounds fantastic. I like to use a 4-band compressor for my vocal group if I have more tracks, to make sure it doesn't get away. And I build my own preset that is always my starting point, which was in the beginning was really meant to make sure that when the double vocal kicked in, that the volume wouldn't just get away. But then I kind of made this preset that I almost can't live without now, because it's like, what's wrong with my mix? Oh, I forgot to turn that one on. No. One of these things. Yeah. A bit of spread. I have some stereo ping pong, and I got this old preset from my TC 2290 that I used to have in the rack, and I never touched it. It was always on the same preset until I thought maybe it would be easier to just do it with because it's kind of easy. It's just like a very, very subtle, very slow chorus and an extremely small amount of depth, and then 20 millisecond delay, and the return's got to be out of phase. So you phase shift one side, because that way it disappears if someone hears it in mono, so you don't get all that nasty flanging, horrible bathroom sounds. Everything disappears, and then it's just nice and smooth still.
Nice.
But you got to be careful not to put too much of it if you're going to vinyl, of course.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. You've been so nice to us today. I really appreciate your time, and it's just such an honor, man. Thank you. And thank you for making such kick-ass records.
Hell yeah. Your contribution is amazing.
Thank you for listening.
Hello out there. Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.